Sure. First of all, thanks so much for the opportunity of being here today. And I'm delighted that you got to see one of the Secret Millionaire episodes, which is one more than Eva has seen, but that's okay. We're not gonna go there. I'm delighted to see the students here today. So special. Yeah. What school are you from? Killiney. Oh, very cool. I got the chance to...
We were all asking earlier on and nobody could make it out, and you're the first one.
Oh, I can speak teenage. One of the parts of Cycle Against Suicide that I loved the most was I got to meet with 40,000 transition year students a year for 5 years, and it was so cool. And I would go into schools and they would all look at me like you're looking at me right now, which is the look of, so what have you got for me right now? Like, I don't even care what you've done. I don't care who you are beforehand. Right now, I want you to deliver something. So that's what we'll do. Early years, grew up in Galway. 3 brothers and a sister, mom and dad. And yeah, it was tough. It was tough. I battled with my mental health from a very young age. And you know, on a beautiful day like today, where it's kind of gorgeous, bright weather, they were the days that I dreaded waking up to. I always wanted to wake up to a morning where it was raining outside. And in fact, when I was in 5th year, I developed a way of waking up, maybe a bit younger, maybe like 2nd year. I developed a way where I'd wake up in the morning and my eyes would be shut. And I would first of all see if I could hear the rain. Because if I knew if I could hear the rain, it was definitely raining. But sometimes it was raining just enough that you could see it, but you couldn't hear it. And the idea was that I had a deal with my dad. And the deal was, on a rainy day, I'd get a lift to school. And either I'd get a lift in the car, or when I was younger, he'd give me a crossbar on the bike. And the way it just worked is... I'd be, I need a hand. Would you be, Dad, come here.
Typecast.
Ah, perfect. Kieran Carrick, super. So Kieran, I'm not sure how this is going to work in a chapel in Trinity.
Be careful, Jim. Kieran's actually a journalist. So.
Is he? Oh my God, brilliant. We're all journalists. So the way it would work was, I'd get up in the morning, and if it was raining, my dad would give me a lift to school on his bike. Remember the crossbars on a bike? Now, you've no idea what a crossbar on a bike is, do you? Have you ever had a crossbar on a bike? So the way it used to work was, can I give that to you, Kieran? So he used to have, you can hear me okay, yeah? He used to have what was called a Mac. You know those coats? So this is going to be a Mac. Is that okay? I need you to take it off, Kieran. Would that be right?
Well, I have a coat.
Oh, geez, a coat even better. Look at this. And what would happen is,
Please, somebody get a photo of this.
in the rain, by the way, that was lovely having our relationship together. From now on, it's gone. But look, it's good when it lasted. So, what he would do is he would put his coat over me, like this, and I would be inside the coat. And do you remember what it was like in the 70s? Do you remember, Dad?
I do. They don't, but I do.
What's the biggest difference between the 70s and today? The biggest difference? Internet? Phones? Time? What else is the biggest difference between the 70s and today? Colour. Oh, big, huge. Just definitely wouldn't have worn them unless I was in San Francisco. The other huge difference, and Dad will remember, is we'd have a bath once a week. whether we need it or not. So people smelled a lot. And we're back here, Dad. Okay. And my dad's coat had a particular smell. And when I was in here, I had this gorgeous smell. Dad, put your hands on the handlebars, please. And as my dad would go around the corners and I'd leave Round Road and I'd go down to Cook's Corner and we'd go along by the canal. And then I'd notice about 2 turns left before I'd go into St. Pat's National School or maybe into the Bish. And what he would do is he would slow down the bike, he would unbutton the Mac, and then I would jump off. And the dread that would fill me, because I had to jump off the bike and go into school by myself. And that moment inside in the coat with Dad caring for me and really, touching and connecting me, that was like a sanctuary. Thank you so much. Thank you. And you do a brilliant job.
Thank you, Kieran.
And if I was to be asked what was it like growing up, it was moments of safety surrounded by lots and lots of dread. Does that make sense? And it wasn't until, it's funny even because I'm not sure if you could hear my heart beating there, brought me back, to what that was like. And I could smell the smells, like smells are so powerful, aren't they? And not saying, and it wasn't until years later I took part in Secret Millionaire and got to meet with amazing people in Dublin 15, particularly Suicide Aware Dublin 15, that I started really working on my own well-being, my own mental health and well-being. So the difference between mental health and well-being, I think, is we all have mental health, so we could have good mental health or poor mental health. Like we could be diagnosed or not with anxiety or depression or OCD or ADHD. That's kind of like a mental health. But even if you've got what's called poor mental health, you can still be well. You can still, for example, if you've got anxiety, it's very treatable. So you can do meditation, you can have medication, you can do sport, you can do lots of different things to make you well. So you can be poor mental health and well, or you can have poor mental health and be unwell. You can also have good mental health and be unwell because you're not sleeping properly or doing drugs, alcohol, whatever it might be. Or you could have good mental health and be well, like Jules, perfectly mental health, perfectly well all the time, or not.
Yes.
And for me, what I had to learn was that my mental health is my mental health. So wherever I am on that spectrum, and to turn the dial on that a little bit takes a lot of work. However, I could be a lot more well by things like sleep, nutrition, avoidance of alcohol when I'm not doing well, friendship, connection, that kind of thing. So for me, that was what it was like growing up.
Great. Yeah, we'll come back to some of those specific things later on, actually, I think. But Brent, you don't sound like him, so you're not from Galway.
He had a bike with a crossbar, that luxury. But no, I'm not from Galway. Actually, I suppose the question is, I think for me later in life is why do I do what I'm doing as far as mental health? Why do I go around the country sharing my experiences, which puts me in a vulnerable spot even now? And sometimes I question that because around mental health difficulties there's a lot of judgment in life, and people feel that if you're being judged for having something wrong with you, then that's unfair, and that's the way I always feel. But the way I look at it now is that if one person gets benefit from it, from people that speaks, one person has the bravery or the courage to seek help, then my job is done. Where it comes for me is a place of misunderstanding, and I like to use the words around mental health or mental well-being around getting a greater understanding, because I think that's what we're missing. I lose the word stigma now because I think that's a word that's used, and that's an old-fashioned word because I think we've moved past that. We all know about mental health now. It's in the news. It's in every magazine you push up in the week. Some people, in fact, to say the word has been overused, and I would tend to agree a bit now about everybody self-diagnosing. They've got anxiety problems. I've gone back to study as a psychotherapist, and I especially tell teenagers, look, getting nervous for an event or a date or or doing a license or leaving cert, getting anxious about that is just a natural part of life, and it's good. It's good to have adrenaline. It's good to be nervous about an event or something. That's not anxiety. It's not anxiety. Anxiety is something that doesn't allow you to move forward. For me, it was catastrophe anxiety, and Jim talks about memories of the 70s. The whole bath thing is where my mental health difficulty started, actually, because not only did you have a bath once a week, you also had to share the water after your mother had been in the bath or your brother had been in the bath. And I was the youngest, only a brother, but I was always the last to get into the bath. And I remember getting into a bath when I was about 14 years of age, and people talk about depression and anxiety as having this mist or whatever. So this mist came over me. What did that look like? It looked like a failure in everything I did in life. That wasn't just one thing. You know, I was 14 years of age. I didn't have any real worries. I grew up in a Huckleberry Finn type lifestyle in New Zealand, you know, riding tyre tubes down the river. We used to have an elective at school, for instance. People don't believe this now, but where I come from, elective on every Wednesday was to go skiing. You know, and say people would say, "Oh God, I've got to go skiing next Wednesday." You know, and so you'd be skiing in the winter, and you'd be surfing or swimming in the summer, and they would be electives at school for people to take. So I had no worries. You know, a good lifestyle.
Was that in Vakapapa? I just need to know.
It was in.
Were you skiing?
No, Mount Hutt.
Right.
I used to work as a ski instructor there in my early days. You know, how cool was that? The weekends to work as a ski instructor. But so then I got into a bath one Sunday night, and suddenly I had this overwhelmingly crippling feeling of being a failure in everything I did. A failure in love, a failure in life, a failure in sport, everything like that. I just thought, you know, I'm going to fail. Then I got the manifestations of a panic attack, full-blown panic attack, which still resonates with me now, and I still have them from time to time now, where I couldn't get my breath. I was having trouble breathing. I started to cry uncontrollably. I was scared. I was terrified. I was just a kid. You know, I didn't know what was happening to me, but I knew it wasn't normal, and I was in a panic situation. I was shaking. I sat in that bath till 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, blue with fear and cold. I went back into my bed, and I lay in the fetal position, and I started crying, and I just said, "Is God taking me?" That's the way I felt. I looked to the heavens, actually, at that stage, and I thought, is this God's moment of taking me from my life? Because that's what I felt like it was. Later, as I got older, it felt like a heart attack or a stroke or whatever like that. But at that time, I thought, what have I done wrong to you, God, to be taking me this early? And that set apart probably a life after that of anxiety, of severe anxiety, generalised anxiety about everything that I did, even though I was a good rugby player. And this is what people don't get. You can succeed in other areas in your life very easily. So people can look at you and say, but, you know, weren't you playing rugby at a high level? Weren't you succeeding at school? Didn't you go to university on a scholarship? All those things. But it's not you. What's the real you is behind a mask. And I masked my teenage years being the class clown or the team joker or somebody that wouldn't worry about things. That's what people thought of me. It's just not what I thought of myself. I didn't have any self-esteem. I had low self-confidence. I used to tell my parents I wasn't even playing in the same city rugby because I feared them coming to watch me, that I'd embarrass them or I'd embarrass myself. Even though I was selected for teams, I always thought I was going to fail. Going into every exam, I'm going to fail. Going into every relationship, I'm going to fail. Going into sports team, I'm going to fail. That's what my life looked at. And there's not enough time to talk about how traumatic that was for me in my teenage years, because I was told when I sought help in those days, man up, toughen up, harden up. Real men don't cry. Real men don't show emotions. The John Wayne syndrome, as I call it. My father was a strong, silent type of man that wouldn't show his feelings. And that's the way that I was taught to be as a man. Yes, I could be physical on a rugby field. I could go around the back of the bike sheds and knock a bully on the end of the nose. I could do all those things. But it was just a situation that I couldn't get help, because where did you get help? You know, when I got into my early 20s, when I got into a dark place in my life, my visions of seeking help were like visions of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. That's what mental health looked like to me, that if you went to a doctor if you went to seek help, that you'll be put in a straitjacket, that you'll be given electrical current therapy, that you'd be put in a psychiatric ward somewhere. That's how I felt about it. And so when I reached out for help, all I was ever given was the physical help. But Brent, aren't you a great rugby player? Aren't you physically fit? Can't you bench press 200 pounds? Can't you run 100 metres and this? That was all I was told to me. Go away and sort it out yourself. And I couldn't sort it myself. And it very nearly cost me my life because I got to such a dark place that, like Jim, I didn't want to see another sunny day, because that just represented a day to me that I should be more grateful for things. I had shame and guilt in my life. Shame that I couldn't fix what was going wrong, that I couldn't tie the thread between physical and mental wellness, and guilt because didn't other people have real problems? What should I be worrying about? Don't you have a roof over your head? Don't you have food on the table? Yes, I did. But what was killing me inside was the way I felt about myself and the fact that I couldn't get help. And so moving quickly on, that is why I do what I do, because I don't want to lose another friend or a colleague through taking their own lives. I don't want people to be out there and not to know that the mind is plastic, not plaster, that you can think yourself well. And that's the message that I try to give out.
Well, thank you both. I tried to give you a nice, easy question to start with and bring us in, and
no, we're sorry.
And you both in beautifully different ways outlined one of the things that I see in this college most actually, and Brent in particular, what you said. So I had anxiety illness in my late 20s. And I've never heard anyone describe what I went through just as well as you just did. So that lying in bed at night, I've been in that place myself.
And it's amazing you say that, because when I talk, you think you're talking about yourself, and the number of people that will come up after I talk and say, "Oh my God, you are living the same life that I'm living now," and I never saw that. And even when you say that now, when somebody you know someone's not faking when they talk about that parts of their life, because you go through the thing. And so, because the one flew over the cuckoo's nest was somebody was just talking a couple of weeks ago, and I thought, my God, that's exactly the way that I saw it going for me. That's exactly the way that I saw that if I went down and reached out to A&E or the services then that were not available, that's where I'd be put. And that was the vision of mental health in those days. Clearly that's not now, and that's great. But to have those... I thought I was the only person that thought that way.
Yeah. I want to add that I'm a lot younger than you.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm not a lot younger at all. So listen, so both of you, yeah. Let's go back, Jim. The question will be the same for both of you. What happened? And Jim in particular, from the life that you just described into being on Ireland's Secret Millionaire programme, that seems like quite a significant journey. How did that journey take place, and how did you not get over? I'll let you speak. I'll not put any words in your mouth.
So I'm conscious as well today that we're given kind of a snippet into things, and I want to make sure that we land in the right parts of the journey. So definitely for me, like I remember black puddles. I remember this time of the year used really create dread for me, because it would be the start of the year where in the evening time walking down towards Cook's Corner in Galway, and I'd be waiting to smell the smoke from the chimneys that would hang in the evening air. I see some people nodding down there, and that smell for me again was the trigger for the onset of a whole season where I knew that it was going to be really about survival. And I don't mean survival in terms of I never thought about suicide ever. It's not something that kind of comes into my mind. However, survival for me was, how do you actually continue? How do you and just to talk about suicide for a moment, like a thought of suicide or a thought of self-harm, they're very complicated feelings and thoughts and ideas, and no two people have the same thoughts about them. However, often these thoughts are actually about how do we survive, how do we get through, self-harming might sometimes be around how do I get through this pain. So there was definitely those moments in the journey where the smell of the turf in the air, the mist, the dark puddles. I also want to share with you that about 4 years ago, I went back to Galway and there was a busker performing in, there's a cafe called Secret Garden, and this is so bizarre because so this busker, this girl was singing in Secret Garden, and a friend of mine said, would you be interested in coming up from Kerry to see this girl sing? So I leave work at whatever time, 5 o'clock, get up to Galway for 7:30, 8 o'clock, and I listened to this girl singing. She was beautiful, so amazing, gorgeous voice, and Katie O'Connor, yeah. And I only heard her that one time. It was about 3 or 4 years ago. And when I finished, I left the Secret Garden, this cafe, and it's down by Dominic Street in Galway, so old Galway. And I left, and I walked down to the canal with a friend, and there was a dark puddle in front of me, and it was beautiful. It was gorgeous, and there was a smell of turf and coal smoke in the air, and it was beautiful. It was gorgeous. The same things that created dread in me, 10 years beforehand, when I was, by the way, I can say this and get away with it here, you're going, no way. So the same thoughts that would have created dread for me in the 80s, this was, 4 or 5 years ago, and it was beautiful. So one of the things to always say about, when Brent shares his story, Jules, for you to share how you were feeling is, it passes. It really does pass. And I would say to the teenager in all of us, so the teenager that's currently in all of us, to speak to her or speak to him and let him know, let her know that it does pass. This time last year, I had my worst depression, and it was actually the first time I was ever on medication. And I don't like taking paracetamol. And this time last year, I was on sleeping tablets, Xanax, and antidepressants. And still, I was sleeping about an hour a night, and that sleep was an hour of sleep, waking up in a pool of sweat. And it was horrible. And within that, I knew it would pass because I'd done the work. I'd done the work when I was well to know that when it happens, it will pass, and you cling on to that hope. And also, I knew that, and this is going to sound very strange, I knew that there was a gift in it. I knew there was a gift in all of this horribleness, that there was a gift there. And maybe it was a gift of creativity, maybe it was a gift of being able to share that story with other people. I wasn't sure, and I still haven't figured out, by the way, what that particular gift was from that horrible time. I believe there is a gift. And in terms of our stories today, just remember, particularly as I look over here, if we're sharing things that resonate, it's kind of also important for us to say there's lots of hope, and there's lots of love, and there's lots of light. And I finish a lot of my emails and a lot of my posts with sending you love, light, and hope. And I believe in that, absolutely.
So how did you get to that place? What were some of the things, or some of the people, or are there moments, or what began to create the shift?
Okay, so I can give you I can give you the two versions. I can tell you the version of, well, I figured out I was in trouble, so I thought about it deeply, and I went and I got help, and I asked for help, and then it fixed itself. I could tell you that. The reality is, I did everything probably the wrong way. I was angry. I created a really powerful business, and often, I'm very good friends with lots of entrepreneurs, and sometimes it's a help to have a mental health issue if you want to do something really big, because you have all sorts of drivers. So like for example, I set up Pulse Learning in 1999, 20 years ago, and after a few years, we'd been successful in Europe, and I wanted to bring Pulse Learning to the USA. So I asked Jessica, would she book me a flight? I'm going over to the USA and I'm going to conquer this market. And just beforehand, our board said, don't do it. You know, it's going to cost you $1 million to enter the market. If you do win any businesses, it's going to be tiny little clients. Nobody will know them. There's the war in Iraq. There's the dollar, euro. There's recession. Don't do it. And I go, nah. I'm like Bono. I'm going to get on this plane. I'm going to land. I'm going to conquer this. And I'd been in the US on a J1 visa. Hopefully someday you'll get a J1 visa. You go over to the US for 3 months. And I spent my 3 months basically in bars in Bainbridge Avenue, New York. So I considered I was an expert on the entire US, because I'd spent 3 months, 15 years beforehand. So I arrive into Newark Airport, which is New Jersey, and I thought I would land in JFK. I didn't realize you could fly into Newark. So I get into this hotel room, and it's dark chocolate brown bed linen. Now, when you have dark chocolate brown bed linen, there ain't nobody washing those sheets, okay? Those sheets are getting washed less often than Dad and I used to wash back in the 70s. And there was a 40-watt bulb, just so you wouldn't be able to see the dirt, you could just smell it. And back then, and you'd love this, there was 2 books in every hotel room in New York and in the States at the time. There was the Gideon Bible, and there was the local telephone book. And I remember being the Catholic boy that I am. I'm always wondering if you say words like that, you get struck in a place like this. Catholic.
Oh, listen, if I've survived in here, you're all right, mate.
So, with my Catholic upbringing, I picked up the phone book, and I went to N, and I dialed 1-800-NASA. And I said, good morning, this is Jim Breen, President, Pulse Learning, waiting for a moment of recognition. And the response was, good morning, sir, how can I direct your call? I said, well, I'd like to speak with the Senior Vice President of Learning. And they said, just one moment, click. And another person answered, and they said, good morning, this is NASA, how may I direct your call? And I said, well, this is Jim Breen, President of Pulse Learning. And they said, yes, sir, how may we direct your call? And I said, well, I'd like to speak to the Senior Vice President of Learning, please. And then I got put through to this lady, and she said, good afternoon, this is NASA, this is Maureen. I realize I'm in a different time zone. And I said, Maureen. And she said, yes. I said, is there any chance your mother or your grandmother was Mary? And she said, yes. I said, Irish? She said, yes. I said, well, do you know that Maureen is the Irish for Little Mary? And she said, no. I said, well, there you go. She said, Jim, how can I help you? I said, Maureen, I'd really want to speak with the Senior Vice President of Learning. And she said, I'll help you do that. Now, do you have your security papers? I said, I've got my passport. And she said, no. You need to have security clearances because you don't work with NASA, but I'll help you get them. I said, oh, thank you so much. How long will that take? And she said, look, we can fast track it. We'll get it done in 6 months. And I go, okay, Maureen, I need to meet with him tomorrow. And she said, okay, tell you what, he has breakfast every morning at 10. It's outside the security of the building. Now, he can't work with us yet, but you'll be able to meet with him. You get here, 9:45, we'll meet, and then I'll introduce you to him. I said, thank you so much. I've got one more question. And she said, what's that? I said, where are you? And she said, oh, you kidder. I said, no, seriously, where are you? And she said, well, this is NASA Ames in Florida. I said, Maureen, see you in the morning. So I checked out of the hotel, bye-bye 40-watt bulb, get on a plane, land in Orlando. And the following morning, meet with the Senior Vice President of Learning of NASA, and NASA became Pulse Learning's first US client, followed by Citibank, followed by Yale. Now here's the thing. I'm not sure if I would have had the drive to do all of that if I wasn't running away from things, if I wasn't avoiding dealing with mental health and well-being, and instead channeling that into doing something, which was a distraction. And it wasn't until 2012 when I got the opportunity of taking part in Secret Millionaire. I don't watch TV, so when RT rang me and they said, would you take part in Secret Millionaire, I'd seen no episodes of it. But for some reason in my head, I thought she said, the lady in RT, I thought she said Desperate Housewives. And I'm thinking, I'm going to be on with Eva Longoria, or yeah, sure. And they were having this conversation about this format about a Secret Millionaire, and I was thinking about Desperate Housewives. And for some reason, we agreed to meet. I agreed to do the program, and there was 3 conditions. I said, number 1, something will come out of this program, and when it does, I want you to partner with me. And RT said, okay. And the second thing is, I said, I want to explore mental health. And they go, ooh. You see, and this is only 2012. They said, that doesn't really work. You know, I said, okay, well, that's fine, and I'm happy not to take part in the program. They go, oh, that's okay, we'll let you explore mental health. And I said, the third thing is, I said, I want it to be real, like real. And they go, well, you know, this is TV. And I said, I want it to be real. And they appointed a guy called Gary Keane, and I don't know if any of you have seen the recent documentary about Gaza. It's been nominated for the one of the huge awards. And Gary, was his first time ever doing format TV, and we created this beautifully real program. We met with real people with real issues, all of which are still great friends. You know, I'm great friends with them today. And that was the start, I think, Jules, of the journey into making a difference around mental health. And after the program was finished, I had this notion, again on a bike, doing the Camino, the Camino from Saint Jean Pierre de Port to Santiago de Compostela. And on that bike, I thought, imagine if we can get people to cycle around the island of Ireland and talking about mental health and sharing with schools about mental health and well-being. And you see, the thing with men particularly, right, here's a little secret, if you want to know a secret about boys. You want to know a secret about boys? Okay.
Press record.
So, here's the way it works. Dad, can I ask you for a second? So, if Dad and I want to have a chat, right, and Dad's thinking, James, because that's what my dad calls me, he said, James, we need to have a conversation. Now, girls, do you think we're going to have the conversation like this? Or do you think we're going to have the conversation like this, where he sits in the car, maybe lets me drive the car, and we talk like this? Because you see, this is how men talk. We both look in front of us, because we don't want to make eye contact. Even now, look, he's perfectly happy, but Kieran, if we're
I've done this before.
You've done it before, have you?
Yeah, with my dad.
Really?
Yeah.
And what did you talk about?
Very little, usually.
Yeah.
Until the very last second.
See, that's it. That's the other thing, right? You got to be patient with us, because we only talk, just when we're about to end up at wherever we're going, and you got to be patient. You got to wait for it, because that's when we start talking. So we'll only talk when we're looking ahead of us and at the last minute, and then we vomit it. We it's like this that comes out of us. And for me, with cycling and suicide, it was the idea of, instead of being in the car, we're now on bikes, and can we get, and again, it was crazy, right? This is a real mental health issue, because I thought we were going to get 1,000 people to cycle around the island of Ireland in the first year. And we didn't get 1,000. We got 2,500 in the first year. And there's 2,500 people who were having a conversation. And particularly the conversation was, it's okay not to feel okay. Like it's okay not to feel okay. And it's absolutely okay to ask for help. And that became the conversation of 2,500 cyclists. And then the magic happened, because we stayed in homestays every night. Just people put up their homes for us. They gave us their homes for free, and they allowed us shower, and they gave us some food, and we'd come in off the bikes, dad and son, or brother and brother, or new friend and new friend, and we'd come in and we'd rock into the house, rocking like this, one of us hands folded, one of us with orange things, and we'd sit down at the kitchen table and we'd start talking about it's okay not to feel okay. And we'd be talking about it's absolutely okay to ask for help. And then the mother would say, I got to tell you something about my story. And the father would say, I've got to tell you something about my story. And the son would say, I got to tell you something about what's going on in school. And the daughter would say, I got to tell you something going on with my friends. And when we finished that first year cycle, we got hundreds of thank you letters, hundreds and hundreds. And I was expecting we get loads of hundreds of thank you letters from the cyclists and the crew. We got thank you letters from the house owners. Thank you for allowing us to have that conversation, that compassionate connection. And that journey was all completely accidental. And I got to figure out, by the way, of quietly getting Kieran back to there and me up here without it looking very awkward. I'm not sure how we're going to do it.
Maybe we just jump up.
We'll just jump up. There we go.
Excellent, excellent.
And that's how it worked.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks, Jim. Brent, the same question. What? And you're not allowed.
Get back up here again.
You're not allowed the bike. Yeah. What began the shift? What began to make the difference? What people or places or circumstances?
Mine's again a bit of a different story, and it probably comes from self-reflection, and it probably comes, to be honest, it comes from probably a place of loneliness and feeling that I couldn't control this. There wasn't help out there, and that's just a generational thing. But I think I realised, I started to realise, when I realised that I could fix myself, and that was my responsibility. I think that was the kind of the light moment for me, that I realised that, yes, I would just have to work a little bit harder than the next person at it. And that's why I like the thing about, people ask me, can you think yourself well? Absolutely, I never believed that, but I believed it now. And it's just a situation of having to go through, if I'm having a panic attack, if I'm feeling in a dark place, I know I have the tools of change. And I think that's important, because I'll start to recognise when I'm getting waves of negativity. And by the way, it's a great saying that negativity is like Velcro in the brain, positivity is like Teflon. And I believe that, because if you think of most things that have affected ourselves in our lives, the memories that linger are negative memories. People won't talk so much about the memories of a romantic date or a good movie or something. They'll go back to, this happened to me. I lost my father, or I lost a sibling, or I lost a friend, or I was involved in an accident. It's trauma that stays in the memory longer than the positivity. So I was sick of being negative all my life, and people always told me, think positive, think positive. I thought, really, it's not that easy to do. It's not that easy to do. But once I started realising that I could put in, I suppose I could trick my mind into believing, and that's a whole lot of things. So if I'm starting to get this, what I call Gatling gun of negativity, I then go to work. And that can be a lot of things. That can be achieving something, that can be making a connection with somebody, that can be doing something I enjoy, that can be practicing meditation. And by the way, I'd be the worst person for meditating out there. I'm always, like, even when I went back studying, I'd always be looking around the room and saying, oh, those people are a lot deeper than I am, But look, I have to do all those things on a daily basis or a weekly basis, and I put them as part of my life now, and they become a priority. Eat well, get enough sleep, as Jim said. Movement is great. All these things. And I say to men out there especially, and I don't want to scare them, but I say, going back studying as a counsellor and a psychotherapist now and doing degrees in psychology and that, I say to men out there especially, it's coming. And they get a bit scared. They say, what's coming? What's coming? I said, it's coming at a time in your life that you're really going to have to be put to task about looking after your mental health. And are you ready for that day? And do you have the tools of change? And they'll look at me blankly, and I say, because you don't know what this afternoon brings. You don't know what the next 5 minutes brings. You could go back from a day at work, and we find it in the construction sector where we work around, you could go back, you could have lost your job, your partner could have left you, you could have to go back to children having problems, being bullied and that. So suddenly you've got to have the tools to be able to change that. And that's where the gift comes in, because people don't...
What are those tools?
Well, the tools are different. There's no one... Jim will talk about, even working with the cycle against suicide, and there's no one perfect fit for everybody. And, speaking to the young people that are here today, you've got to realise that we're all on a... If you take a line between kind of, I suppose, feeling anxious or depressed or that, up to complete happiness or fulfillment and all that, all our lives are spent somewhere along that line. You know, we can't, it's not realistic for us to be happy all the time. It's not. And we actually resent people that are too positive. You know, we all have those friends that everything is great and you start saying, oh, God, you get fed up. I was talking to a guy there recently, he said, my wife hates me when I'm so positive. And I said, what do you mean? She'll say, how are you getting on? I'm great. Things are great. Health is great. Job is great. She said, oh my God, you piss me off. You know, because we and it was just funny, I was talking to some people before and I said, they've done studies about people that actually give away lottery tickets as birthday presents, because then they ask them, do you want the person you gave it to actually win? They say, oh God, no. You know, oh, here's this present and a card, the lottery ticket, and they come back to you and say, I've won 100 grand. Oh Jesus, what did I buy? Because we like to think negatively about ourselves. So, you know, what do I have to do? It'll start with getting up in the day. I'm a great believer in three things. If the one takeaway that I get people to go from is something that is called ACE, which is achieve, connect, and enjoy. And I think if you start with that basis, and that means, what is that achievement? Wallowing, especially for young people, for parents out there, or for young people that may go through periods in their life, wallowing or staying in the bed or doing something inactive is your worst enemy. So I'm about people getting up and doing anything. What does that achievement look like? It may be getting up and having a shower. It may be washing your hair. It may be having a shave. It may be going to the gym. It may be walking the dog. It may be doing something. But get up and start the day with an achievement of some kind. And then in your mind or a card, score it out of 10. You know, what does that look like? Is it a 3 in the sense I had a shave? Is it a 9 out of 10 where you go out and do the garden and then you end up painting the shed and you come back in at 4 in the afternoon? You know, those days you think, oh God, that's great. I've done so much more. Connect. Please connect. And to the young people now that are here in this room, we have created, foolishly, a headphone generation. And that means people on buses with headphones on and ignoring connections with people, asking people about their lives. I ripped out a piece of paper from the UK. I was speaking over there recently with Kelly Holmes, the Dame Kelly Holmes, and I pulled out a piece of paper that said, a 93-year-old woman has gone into the bank and told to go online. And she said, all I came into was to talk to someone. I don't get a chance to talk to anybody anymore. And I thought, we've created a society that doesn't talk to people. When was the last time people called into an elderly neighbour? When was the last time people sat down and generally had a conversation with someone, said, at work or whatever, how are you getting on? Like, how are you generally getting on? You know, and young people can talking about mental health. Yes, I know that there, but when was the last time you sat down with friends or whatever and said, look, how are you, or whatever, or listen, or how's your family life, or how's your sport? Have an interest in people. Make those connections, because that will make us go back to community spirit or community when we grew up. Like when I first came to Ireland, areas like Ballymun, Ringsend, Darrendale, I had a job delivering beer to there was great community spirit. People would care for people. People have lost that. And the last thing is enjoy. And also rate that connection. I rate the connection. What did that feel like to meet up with friends and watch the rugby or whatever and, you know, see New Zealand beat Ireland and, you know, what's that connection like? Probably lower for them than it is for me. And the last thing, do something you enjoy. And the only bit of word of advice like that, I wasn't in a particularly good place a while ago, but like Jim, and I set about that work, and I got up and I did the garden and I painted the shed. I put on a card, 8 out of 10 for the achievement of that day. Met up with friends again to watch the rugby. You know, 7 or 8 out of 10. Hadn't seen them for a while. And then I was coming home and I met some girls I studied with, and they said, will you come to the movies with us, Brent? And I went to see Mamma Mia 2. So the enjoyment went right down. And I said, so men, if you're ever getting things 90% right and then somebody asks you to go and see Mamma Mia 2, resist that, because it doesn't make you feel good anyway. But anyway, look, in a long way around your question, know that you can fix yourself with help or without help. You know, as Jim said, know that it's okay not to feel okay, but it's not okay anymore, and I go more, it's not okay not to ask for help anymore, because there is help out there. But the best thing you can do, really, the lesson is help yourself first. You know, affirmations, living in the now, mindfulness, all these tricks, we can get our mind out of that DNA that's back and prehistoric man that is fight or flight, step out of your comfort zone, do something different with your lives, all these things. I mean, the list is endless. Just find what suits you and have wonderful, fulfilled, happy lives. It's what we want, really, at the end of the day.
Fantastic. I'm going to make a quick comment, and then I'm going to throw it open, because I'm looking around, and I know some people in the room, and I know that we have some positive mental health activists and others in here. So it would be unfeeling of me to take all of the time. But in terms of that call to community and to engagement and to getting out behind screens, I've been here 12 years now, working in this university, and it's been a joy. I love it. I know. I came to do my undergrad and I just haven't left. But yeah. One of the first things I noticed, interestingly, is that the things that we have in this college to look after students, I thought were great. There are good systems in place. There's a wonderful student counselling service. There's wonderful peer learning. There's great peer support. And I was so impressed. And my thoughts in that first year was, Trinity does this really well. There'll be no problems with people. And over 12 years, I've just seen the number of students with serious mental health issues and even suicides just go up. And I thought, what's going wrong? And one of the things is that we now at this university have the first generation arriving who've literally been raised completely behind screens. They didn't have to get used to them. It has completely been the world of people who are now at university. So the last 20 years has seen a massive shift. So everything that you're saying is so helpful and really, really good. Does anybody, I haven't even looked at the time. Let me see how much time we've got left. And let's take a few, we've got about, 10, 15 minutes. Yes? You know what, let me bring it to you. Let's do like this, get some steps in for the day.
Sorry. Hey, how you doing? My name is Miriam. Happy to be here today. I had experiences in the past. I work as a community interpreter, and obviously the issue of mental health is always there. What is the role that social media plays? Because nowadays we need to be 24/7 on the internet, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, whatever, and people expect you to start posting photos, and if someone doesn't post a picture for 2 days, they think they are gone, and they start to ask their friends. Now, we live in a world that if you are not posting a Facebook page or a Facebook picture on a daily basis, they think you are gone. My question to you is that can this social media be dangerous? You need to have your own, obviously, boundaries, and obviously if you feel you don't want to put anything on Facebook, doesn't mean you are not okay, or people start checking on you. Is everything okay with you, Miriam? What's going on? What is your experience in the past with social media and people not reaching the others? Can have a positive or negative experience. Thank you.
Great question.
I'd be really interested to ask one of the young ladies here if they'd be good enough to talk about the influence of social media in their lives, because, I might come across as an old fuddy-duddy in the sense, but it's causing serious problems around bullying, around acceptance, around judgment. But I wonder about this generation, if somebody would answer the question about how you ladies feel about social media. I mean, how do you feel about it? Is it a good thing, or has it become a bad thing? Yeah.
Well done.
I think Snapchat is quite good because you get to communicate with your friends, but I think that if you're not invited to something, there's this thing called stories, Snapchat stories, so they post basically on their stories, and you can find out that if you weren't invited to something, you can see on the story, basically, if you're not there. And I've had experiences, I think first year, that was quite, because I was only getting Snapchat, and if you weren't invited to these big group things, I did feel quite upset and lonely. But I think Instagram is a bigger problem. I think Snapchat is actually not as bad. Instagram is where it goes downhill because you see celebrities, especially models, Victoria's Secret models. I've had to unfollow about 50 of them. When I was in first year, I think I followed 25. I follow none of them now because it just makes you feel really insecure about your body, and you see all these people online, they're all like, they're basically anorexic. Like, that's just not what the human body looks like. It's ridiculous. Like, you go online and you say, oh, why don't I look like that? I think they have carrot sticks for like breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I don't think they've ever had a hamburger in their life. Like, it's ridiculous. It's actually ridiculous. And I'm like eating dinner. I'm like, have they ever even tried this before? But then you wonder, are they as happy as they look in their photos? And that's what you have to think.
You've got a really fantastic, I'd say, a really mature way of looking about that. I wonder whether your friends feel the same. Has it become a situation whereby, you know, you meet most of your friends, you do most of your talking online, you have visions of what your life should be like through Instagram posts or whatever like that, you know, because I was speaking to, I think, a mother who had lost her daughter there a couple of years ago on the Late Late. We just happened to be on the Late Late show at the same night talking about mental health. And she said, Brent, she said she had 5,000 friends on Facebook, but she was lonely. Yeah. And I thought, really, that's where we've gone wrong. You can have all these so-called friends, likes, you know, but then where's the real, to go back to where's the real connection? Yeah. You know, are you conveniently connecting online or connecting on Instagram rather than connecting face to face with people and sharing real life experiences and friendships and relationships and all those things? Has it transferred over in your world to social media?
Well, I think the only relationships I have are in real life. I don't have any online relationships with anyone because you can't really keep them. It's not the same as having human connection, touch. It's just not the same. I've never really met anyone online. All the people I talk to, I do know in person, and I've met them from, for example, my friend Caitlin, I met her in a sailing camp, and I kept in touch with her online, but then we meet up. We use online to meet up. I don't really have, I could have a 2-hour conversation with her online, but the best conversations I have with her are in person. And I think that's the same for most people.
Beautiful. Well done.
Thank you.
Just
so, do you want to say something quickly in the social media?
Just a couple of things. First of all, just say beautiful answer, and it's lovely to see somebody so eloquent, and then also 10 friends kind of just supporting. That's gorgeous, really nice. That's my favorite moment of today. Just maybe to challenge the thinking though again is, so that's all true, right? Now here's a counter truth. So, a stitch in time saves 9. Don't mend it unless it's broken. Many hands make light work, too many cooks boil the broth. So everything that's said is true. Now here's the counter truth. The counter truth is, it's an amazingly powerful tool for mental health as well. It's a great tool to get messaging out there. It's a great tool to communicate with people. It's a great tool to help people feel connected with like-minded people. So we got to be careful that we don't follow. They say the real sign of intelligence is to be able to hold two counter truths at the same time and still be able to function. Okay, so it's being able to see the polar opposites in something and yet be able to still work through. Here's a vision. There's about 500,000 people in third level education in Ireland, including students and staff. It's a lot of people. I have a vision that in the next 3 or 4 years, every one of those 500,000 people will be aware of the fact that it's okay not to feel okay, and it's absolutely okay to ask for help. Every one of those 500,000 people will know that we can all make a compassionate connection with other people to help signpost where help and supports are available. There was a study done by the Union of Students of Ireland just a couple of months ago. It's worth looking at if anybody's interested in this area. And one thing that came out of it was, here in Trinity, for example, representative of any other third level in Ireland, only half the students are aware of the supports that are available to them from a mental health perspective. Imagine that. Imagine how many people would be at your room, Jules, every day if the other 50% knew that you were there. Imagine. That's one thing. And then of the 50% of people who do know about the services that are available, about 60% of them are reluctant to reach out for help. So I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a social entrepreneur, so I always think about what we can do rather than what we can't do. So what we could do is this. We could have everybody with the courage, the confidence and the skills to be able to show you care, to be able to ask the question and to be able to call for help. I remember talking about this again with 40,000 students a year, and I would say to a group, it could be 6,000 students in the RDS for Student Leaders Congress, or it might be a class of 12. And I would say, do you think we could show we care to each other? And generally, everybody would say, yeah, of course we can. And I'd say if it was a class with boys and girls, I'd say, can you give me some examples of how we show we care? And the boys would all say, well, we could talk to our friends. And the girls would say, yeah, we could listen to our friends. And so we can show we care. The second thing is, could we get the courage, confidence and skills to be able to ask the question? So Jules spots me in the morning, shows he cares, we have a hug, we have a connection, he checks in how we getting on. And then based on how I respond, he says, hey Jim, from what you're saying, do you think you might need to talk with somebody? Or maybe maybe you've shared there you're feeling some financial problems, or you're more than maybe just nervous about this exam. Maybe again, what you're experiencing is more than just nerves. And depending on my response, again, Jules would have the courage, confidence and skills to say, okay, let me help you call for help. I know somebody, GP or pastor or financial support services or whoever it might be, who can help. Imagine 500,000 people on this island that would be able to have the courage, confidence and skills to show you care, to ask the question and to call for help. Now, that seems like a bit ambitious, right? So let me put it in real terms. I had that idea 12 months ago. And Woolworths are the largest employer in Australia. So this is maybe, if you're interested, this is something to share with you. Think big. So I met the largest employer in Australia, and they're a client of ours. And they wanted to know what we could do for their 200,000 team members around mental health. And I found myself, so I'm an extrovert. So extroverts, we think as we talk, okay? Sometimes it gets us into trouble, whereas introverts think first and then they talk. And as I was talking and thinking, I outlined, and we now call it I Am Here. And we rolled it out to the 200,000 team members in Australia. Now here's what's happened. The last program they rolled out, over 2 years, 1,200 people took it, which is not bad. 1,200 people, so 0.6 of 1%. And I said, we're not going to get 1,200, we're going to get 12,000 people take it in 2 years. And I was wrong, because in 6 months, 24,000 people have completed I Am Here. So it's 24,000 people in Woolworths, the largest employer in Australia, who know, show you care, ask the question, call for help. So you say, so what? Well, here's what. As a result, the number of people who are now asking for help has trebled. And we know that by asking for help, it's the biggest predictor of better mental health. As Brent said, it's okay not to feel okay. It's absolutely okay to ask for help. So we can do it with 200,000 team members in Australia. Brent and I are working on this together. It's called I Am Here. We've brought it into CISC, right? So a real macho, environment. We brought it into Bord Fáilte, brought it into Core Media. We brought it into CCA in the US. And I want to bring it. Jules, you asked me to come here as a favour. I'm asking you a favour back. I want anybody here that's connected with third level. Let's bring it into the 500,000 people across the island of Ireland, and we create a new... Imagine what it would be like, and here's the way the mind works, right? I was walking across the quad this morning. What would it be like in Trinity if everybody had the courage, confidence and skills to make that compassionate connection with each other? I'll tell you what it might feel like. Last week I met with somebody in Dublin. Her name is Geraldine. She's a beautiful friend of mine. And she said, Jim, I got to tell you a story. I said, cool. She said, it's a big story. I said, yeah, love stories. She said, just while I was waiting for you, I was standing here and I was looking across while I was waiting for you, and there was a homeless man sitting down, and these two students, Italian students, came walking along. And when they spotted him, they stopped and they started talking with him. And one of them had a sandwich, and just very naturally they sat down and they started talking with the man. And then they started just having food together, having that sandwich, the three of them, just sharing their sandwich. She said, how amazing was that? I go, oh, and even the idea of it, the idea of two girls who are not even from here, connected with the man connects with them, they break bread together. Now, who benefited there? Everybody. Not just the homeless person. The two girls benefited. Geraldine, my friend, benefited. I've benefited. Hopefully you get something out of it. It's all these little things we can do. That's what the culture in Trinity, and that, Jules, I think, is the single most important thing we could do to really combat the stresses and the pressures and all sorts of things going on in life. And by the way, you don't need to have any qualification. You don't need to be a GP, counselor, psychotherapist, psychologist, a mental health worker. I was asked by somebody today, I'm a part of the care world. And I go, yes, I am. And they go, oh, what's your qualification? I don't have any. I'm a civil engineer. Know a little bit about entrepreneurship. We can all be part of the show you care world. We can all be part of the ask the question, and we can be absolutely all part of the call for help world. And I'm here. Brent and I talked about this when it first came in as an idea. Brent has been on board with it, and I really do think it's the thing that could make the difference.
Jim, thank you. Friends, sadly, really, genuinely sadly, our time has gone. This has been, for me, one of the most enjoyable 70 minutes I've had for a very long time. I've got one more question for you, Brent. I bet you can't guess what's coming at you. But in saying thank you to both of you, I just, Jim, whenever you said that, I've got good friends in here, and they saw me, and they're like, yeah, he's so into what you're just saying, and it's just like, yeah, we're all, and you've got people from other universities from here, I can see in the room, so that last challenge is really pertinent. And I also want to say, Jim actually lives this stuff. He's not just here presenting Senate, and I know this because on the phone a few weeks ago, he finished a call to me by saying, hope you don't mind me saying, you sound tired. And we moved into a beautiful conversation, because actually for the 2 or 3 days before that, I had been deciding, I was remembering this day last year, and I was remembering how I started it, and I was remembering how I finished it even worse, and I had been trying to think of ways that I was not going to arrive tired into today, because I wanted to be present in it and I wanted to enjoy it. And so Jim really pushed and really helped with that by just one little question on the phone. So he lives what he's just been talking about. So cheers for that, mate. I'm full of beans today. Brent, who's going to win on Saturday?
Anyway, the mental health thing. Well, I was just down the shops yesterday, and a woman asked the same question. I said, "Yeah." I said, "We'll win," and she went away and happy. And she came back. She said, "Who is we?" And I said, "Well," I said, "We'll win." I said, "I'll leave it at that." It's a tough one. Ireland have had the All Blacks number for the last 3 or 4 years. I don't think Ireland are performing as well as in 2018 when they won the Grand Slam and they beat the All Blacks. Having said that, this is a perfect time for Ireland to hit. And I still haven't got that psychology. I know it's involved in Irish history about being the underdog and fighting back, but I thought we had left that in sport. But yet even the soccer players talking about the other night, talking about Denmark now, the GA players and that come up from Kerry and that, there's something about the Irish psyche that likes to go in as the underdog, under the radar, to say, hold on, you didn't expect us to do this, now we're going to show you. There's that fighting Irish spirit. And I think that Ireland, we haven't seen it yet. I still think they have a big game in them, and it's got to occur on Saturday. Will that be enough? I think the result will either be a close win for Ireland, a couple of points, or it'll be a landslide victory from New Zealand. And that's a weird thing to say as a pundit, because I think that's how it'll go. I think that if Ireland can stay in the match and put the All Blacks under pressure, because New Zealanders exist for rugby. It's more about an identity. It's not the end of the world if Ireland come back. You know, it'd be disappointing, but it's not the end of the world. My God, it's the end of the world for New Zealanders if they come out. So I think that, Ireland, anyway, we'll win. Let's put it that way. So anyway, good luck. Thank you very much for that. Thanks for the lend of the bike.
Jim Breen, Brent Pope, thank you very much so much.